Hi guys, today we're going to have our third video about chemistry. We're going to be talking about atomic structure. So in the last video we talked about how matter can be in the form of elements, compounds, or mixtures. And today we're going to be talking just about elements. Elements are particles that are made up of one type of atom. Every atom that's in an element is exactly the same as the other atoms that are in that element, but different from the atoms in different element. So every oxygen atom is the same, but every oxygen atom is different from every nitrogen atom. There are three different subatomic particles that make up atoms. They are protons, neutrons, and electrons. The protons and neutrons are found in the nucleus of the atom here in the middle. The electrons orbit the atom in what's called an electron cloud. Each of these subatomic particles are named for their charge. So protons are positive, you can remember P for positive. Neutrons are neutral. So a lot of people make the mistake of thinking neutrons are negative. They're not, they have no charge. And electrons are negative. Because the nucleus has protons and no negative charges, the nucleus has an overall positive charge, and the electron cloud has an overall negative charge. It's important to remember that all of these things are extremely, extremely small. Protons and neutrons are about the same size, but electrons are about 2,000 times smaller than protons. They're actually so small that a scientist can't tell exactly where in the cloud they are, which is why we have electron clouds. We never know the exact position of an electron. On the periodic table, you see squares for each element that look like this one. On these squares are two really important numbers. The first one is the atomic number, which is up at the top. So the atomic number for carbon is 6. The second important number is the atomic mass, which is at the bottom. And that is the number of protons and the number of neutrons added together. So the atomic number tells you the number of protons that are in the nucleus, as well as the number of electrons that are in the electron cloud. So you can see here there are 6 protons in the nucleus and 6 electrons in the cloud. To find the amount of neutrons, so here you can see there are 6 neutrons, and that's because the atomic mass is 12 minus the atomic number is 6, so you end up with 6 neutrons. On the periodic table, the squares are showing the neutral form of the atom, and so you can assume that the number of electrons is the same as the number of protons. Here's just another example with oxygen. Oxygen has an atomic number of 8, so that's the number of protons and electrons. It has an atomic mass of about 16, so that's the number of protons plus neutrons. You can see here there are 8 protons, 8 neutrons, and 8 electrons. It's also important to note that the inner shell can only hold 2 electrons, while the outer shell can hold up to 8. An atom that has an outer shell of 8 electrons is considered to be stable and won't react. Those are the noble gases. All right, let's talk about isotopes. Isotopes are atoms of the same element that have different numbers of neutrons. So some elements have many isotopes and others only have a few isotopes. This is carbon, which has several isotopes. And you can see here that there are 6 neutrons in carbon-12. That's the form that's on the periodic table. 7 neutrons in carbon-13 and 8 neutrons in carbon-14. And the isotopes are named for the atomic mass that they have, so the number of protons plus neutrons. Another form of atoms that you might see are ions. Ions are just charged atoms. So they're not neutral, they're either positive or negative. What happens is that an electron is either added or lost to change the charge of the atom. So protons stay the same, electrons are either subtracted or added. If the element loses an electron, like in this situation, it becomes positive because electrons are negative. So if you take away negatives, you become positive. If an electron is added, then the element becomes more negative. One example of an element that forms a negative ion is chlorine. It loses or gains one electron, so it becomes more negative. That's why sodium and chlorine attract to form salt, because there's a negative and a positive. Sometimes you might see that there's a number next to the charge. That means that more than one electron was added or gained. So oxygen forms a -2 charge ion, and that's because 2 electrons are added. Whether electrons are added or lost depends on where the element is in the periodic table, which we'll talk about later on. So let's do one more example of finding the protons, electrons, and neutrons in an element. Let's use the example of fluorine, which is right here in group 17. Fluorine is a cool element because it's also found in your toothpaste as well as in your drinking water. So a lot of city water is treated with fluoride to help with dental hygiene. So fluorine's atomic number is 9 and its atomic mass is 19. So right off the bat, we know that the number of protons is equal to 9 because it's the same as the atomic number. Because the periodic table always has the neutral forms of the element, we also know that if the positives are 9, then the negatives have to be 9 too. To find the neutrons, we're going to do the atomic mass minus the atomic number, which is going to give us 10 neutrons. So there you have it, pretty easy to solve. We're going to be working on these some more in class this week. All right, that's it for today. Hopefully you learned something new about atoms. Make sure you do your discussion post, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.